All right, a couple major things with MSTR's earnings. Apologies, a couple days late on this video. A lot to digest really when it comes to MSTR and their earnings. So I wanted to take a second and just go through like what is actually the most important things here for normal investors. A lot of exciting things. Obviously, they've upped their ability to buy Bitcoin now to a total of $84 billion, which is huge. The ATM has been explained to death, so everybody should understand why Michael Saylor is using the ATM. A lot of people, this is a problem. When a lot of people don't understand what the actual strategy of strategy is, they're going to come around and say, oh, but he's using the ATMs and suppressing the price, etc., etc. The point of the ATM is basically to harvest volatility to buy more Bitcoin. The Bitcoin going up adds value to the shares. It's as simple as that. And now they've proven that they can do this, and they've proven that they can do it successfully. So they've upped it from the 21-21 plan to basically the 42-42 plan. The one thing that they didn't mention, which is probably because it's been sort of hard to accomplish, is the convertible debt, right? The convertible debt has not been utilized yet to the maximum ability. I think they've got about $3 billion worth of convertible debt to utilize. But there's a couple key things in this earnings call, which, by the way, is a phenomenal earnings call. If you have one share of MSTR, you should be watching their earnings calls to understand what's going on. There's a lot of people out here that are like waiting for other people's videos and analysis to watch the damn earnings call. Like, this is your money you're talking about. Pay attention to what's going on. And even for me, I was watching it, and this is advanced high-level financial engineering that's going on, especially in the use of their bonds and everything else that they're using. So what I want to do is take away all the complicated part and just tell you what the most important thing is for normal shareholders who are not trying to analyze this thing to death and be all nerdy about it, right? If you're a normal shareholder, here are the key things that you need to understand as a result of their earnings call. Number one, for me, the most important thing. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the video, because this is what I want to do. I want to focus on helping Bitcoiners understand and simplify the nuance of these things that are going on that are exciting right now. And this is super exciting right now. So subscribe to the video if you haven't. Help me spank the YouTube algorithm, the X algorithm. The faster and harder you subscribe, the faster and harder they'll get this content out in front of other people. So here's a few things that I thought were very, very important. Number one, as a shareholder, I like the acknowledgement after, the last time of using the ATM that winning is pushing MSTR share price up, because what it felt like for a lot of shareholders, and again, these are short-term shareholders, but they're equally as important, was that MSTR, Saylor, and the team didn't understand that I want you to pump my bags. And so what they were doing was pumping that ATM, which was naturally causing a price suppression effect. And that's the point, by the way. I, as a shareholder, am paying Saylor and the MSTR team to buy Bitcoin for me using leverage that I cannot get. That is the value of me holding MSTR shares. But if you're a short-term trader, or you're one of these options traders that's doing 2 or 3 month trades, it's really not conducive to you if all they do is project that they're going to take 3 years to do something, i.e. sell $21 billion worth of stock and do like 50% of it in a month, right? That's not conducive to you being able to place directional bets. So we got massive acknowledgement from Saylor and from the rest of the team that winning is pushing up the price of MSTR. At the end of the day, you can buy as much Bitcoin as you want, but as a CEO of a publicly listed company in the US, your number one primary objective is to maximize shareholder value, and they acknowledge that abundantly. So that was really good. Secondly, I think that a lot of people are missing. A lot of people are thinking about Metaplanet and Cantor Fitzgerald new venture with Jack Mallers and Tether 21 Capital, that these companies are going to come and try and take a little bit of liquidity from MSTR. Very interesting concept, except Michael Saylor came out and said, oh, because obviously Metaplanet has just said they're going to launch a vehicle on the US markets, and there's all these other vehicles that are being launched that are trying to get US dollars. And Michael Saylor came out and basically said, no, we as a US listed biggest gorilla in the cage are about to go and list vehicles in those foreign markets to get their capital into MSTR, which is, I think, being overlooked, because I think that puts a bigger threat on all these other vehicles than them doing it to MSTR. MSTR has the brand value. MSTR is the biggest gorilla in the cage. And when you study markets, markets like the biggest player in the game. And so this is huge for MSTR, and it's huge for investors in all of those other entities, because they now need to figure out, okay, so what is the threat potential of capital flowing straight to MSTR? If MSTR goes and lists a vehicle in Japan, you got to look at it and go, okay, so can Metaplanet's, does Metaplanet justify the premium that it has versus MSTR if I have easy access to MSTR as a Japanese investor? So very interesting to think about that. MSTR is actually taking the fight to everybody else. And of course, that's good for MSTR shareholders. Look, the next thing that I think is very important is that Saylor understands that keeping a stock interesting is very important. And how you keep, and I said this, on my podcast with Tim Kotzman and on my own videos here. And again, if you haven't seen that, you need to subscribe, because it's very important to not miss out on these things, because Saylor has been using this word interesting for a while. And as soon as I heard him change verbiage, I started putting that out there for you guys. And interesting is very important. You got to keep a stock interesting. And how do you keep a stock interesting? You keep a stock interesting through volatility. And right now, MSTR's implied volatility is hitting lows. It's hitting absolute lows. And what that tells me is that there is a plan. And by the way, the ATM is a function to decrease volatility, right? Because they're basically having a consistent sell order in the market. So what will happen next, I predict, is that MSTR's volatility is about to spike. And that's how you keep a stock interesting. How are they going to spike it? They can spike it through converts. They can spike it through different debt levels. And then, of course, they can spike it just through general market performance of what's going on, right? So I think that MSTR's implied volatility, 30-day IV, will be over 100, by latest by the end of the year. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting for shareholders. And if you're in MSTY, you got an income fund, whatever. I think all of these things are coming right now down the pipeline. I also think that what was quite interesting for me as a shareholder of MSTR was the breakdown of how they've basically created a slew of products to drive people into the social network for dollars that is MSTR. One of the ways that I've been explaining MSTR recently is, imagine a social network like YouTube or X or Instagram, right? Let's take Instagram for example. On Instagram, you have a bunch of different features. You have DMs. You have the ability to follow someone. You have the ability to like someone's photo. Let's just take those three. There's going to be an audience of people who don't care about DMs, don't care about posting their own photos, but want to like other people's photos to show their support. Well, now Instagram can attract that audience because they have that feature. Say there's also going to be people that just care about DMs, don't care about posting, don't care about liking anyone's photo, but they just care about the DM ability for anyone on that network of Instagram. Well, MSTR is a social network, but for dollars. And what they're doing here is they're creating all these other features like STRF, STRK, et cetera, for all of that capital to come onto the platform of MSTR. And of course, if you're using income funds like I am with MSTY, and you've seen my videos on that, then that is also a feature of the platform, the social platform of MSTR for US dollars. And so they've explained their commitment here to constantly grow these avenues that will drive dollars into the social network of MSTR for US dollars. And this is great for a shareholder because it increases the overall premium value of the underlying social network. It's like Instagram would be worth a lot less if the only feature was posting, right? But then you add direct messages and it has a little bit more value, and you add likes and it adds a different, a little bit more value, and then all of that combined adds an even greater value because now you're talking about how much time that you've spent in the social network. And I think that will start becoming a metric. And of course, they're already probably looking at it, which is how long do dollars stay in the universe of MSTR, whether they move from MSTR stock to income funds, that's derivatives markets on MSTR, or they come out of that and go into STRK or whatever. How long do those dollars get trapped and spend time into that MSTR network? And that will also increase the value of the MSTR social platform for US dollars. Now, MSTR has their yearly conference this year. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but it's in Orlando. It's happening this week. I think it kicks off this week. They're going to announce a lot of great things, a lot of new things, whatever they've been working on for the company, for the software business. But look, MSTR here has absolutely committed to buying as much Bitcoin as possible. This earnings call was good because even like options traders, right? The problem for options traders is if I get told that I am going to, dilute the shares at an X rate over a period of over a 3-year period of time, and then those shares get diluted at 10 times that X rate, and it happens in 10X less the amount of time, that really screws with my trading ability as an options trader. And if I'm MSTR, I want options market liquidity, which is going to drive volatility and of course keep the stock interesting. And I think that while they had to put pedal to the metal and acquire as much Bitcoin as they could, I think they very much acknowledged, and the way they were speaking, I think that there's been several internal conversations there to realize that we need to take this a little bit slower on the ATMs and extract Bitcoin from that volume, but it's got to be a little bit slower than normal, which, by the way, or a little bit slower than what we've done, which, by the way, is going to be good for shareholders because it will allow share price value or share price to expand to the upside. Look, I think if I was an MSTR bear right now, I would be absolutely shitting myself. And by the way, when I say an MSTR bear or a Bitcoin bull or whatever, I mean someone that actually has their money where their mouth is. I don't mean just people writing tweets all day about how something is good or bad or whatever. If you think it's bad, short it. Right? There was a lot of people talking about MSTY and NAV erosion and all that. So what, over the last 2 weeks, what we have? NAV expansion? What the fuck are you guys talking about? So there's a lot of stupidity, just blatant, actual ignorant stupidity out there in the markets that just don't understand how certain things work. And those are not bears, right? Those are not bears. A bear is someone who has an active position against whatever they're talking about negatively. And again, I say this all the time to bears. It's like, show me your position. Show me your short position. Show me. Because I think you're wrong, but your opinion, the beautiful thing about capital markets is that I can exercise my opinion with my dollars, and so can you. So if you are talking bearish about something, show me the short position. It's as simple as that. I can absolutely show you my long position. Show me your short position, and then I can talk to you about it. That's where I've gotten to, by the way. I don't want to talk to anyone as a negative. If they don't come to me inquisitively, then anyone who has a negative opinion about Bitcoin, MSTR, whatever, I want to see the short position. I do not care about opinions anymore. It's just too much now. We've now got the entire C-suite of American politics into Bitcoin. We've now got, all of the biggest asset managers into Bitcoin. And these people still have negative opinions. Well, show me your short position, because that would force you to actually do some research. And these people don't have research because they are absolutely moronic. And that's the reality of it. So look, overall, really great. These are the key things. They talked about amazing depth of knowledge on finance, on how their debt is actually more interesting than owning other debt, and how the trading ability, or rather the arbitrage between US dollar yield that's needed versus the yield that you get on MSTR debt, keeps everything interesting. And all of that's cool, but that is MIT level finance. Even I needed to go do some work to actually understand a lot of what they were saying. So not a lot, but about that specific topic is fascinating, but it's not important. The key thing that I want everyone to be aware of is that what's important is MSTR has acknowledged that winning looks like, and this is a Saylor quote, winning looks like pushing the MSTR share price as high as possible. So if I was a bear, I'd be shitting myself right now if I actually had an active short position against MSTR here. Also, it's important to understand that they're going to continue looking for avenues of capital using intelligent leverage, as they put it. And I think it's important to understand that the entire C-suite of MSTR is fully aligned to this one objective of making MSTR successful by pushing its share price up. And I think and they're going to execute buying as much Bitcoin as possible, which is, by the way, what we are paying them for, right? The fact that we are handing over our capital is like a payment, because they can do this at a better rate than I can. If I could leverage my Bitcoin at the same rate as Michael Saylor could and do it in all the fascinating ways that he can do it, I would just do it myself, because I wouldn't need to pay their fee. I can't. So I am paying them to be able to do this. That's what I'm paying them for. And they acknowledge that. They acknowledge the fact that the ATMs were too harsh and fast. And this is all good. This is all really good for MSTR shareholders. What I want to continue talking about in the next couple of videos is a little bit more on income, because it's been a conversation that completely blew up. I had an X post of mine almost have 1 million views on that. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. So subscribe to the channel, subscribe on X as well, because that's where my thoughts go first. But ultimately, MSTR's earnings, what's been hidden in this earnings call is the acknowledgement, and no one's really talking about, is the acknowledgement that winning is pushing the share price as high as possible, and I wouldn't be on the bear side of that trade. But ultimately, there's always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.